Hello, my name is Marco Vargas, and I'd like to talk to you about the Army and its advances in medicine. So, normally when you talk about the Army, you think of camo, you think of people shooting, you think of maybe people getting blown up, or all these kinds of cool, actiony superhero stuff. What you don't often think about is the other side of things that might not seem so glamorous medicine, right? But these things were taking place since the beginning of American history almost. So we start off with George Washington and the need for smallpox vaccinations or inoculations. Then they start looking at the sanitization of the camps and waters and food that they were eating. Then we start looking at the organization of the medical system as a whole. And then we get to even looking at how to transport patients, starting with the litter. At one point, people had to walk to get to care. Then we started thinking, hey, if they can get carried, we'll have more people to survive. Then we have the cattle and horse carriage, which eventually evolved into the ambulance and even air transport. Then we get into, as we're talking about the organization of medical healthcare systems, roles of care. So talking about the first responder, you call them an EMT, a paramedic. In the Army, they're just medics. Um, of just treating the most life-threatening things right there. Nowadays, the Army uses March pause, which is massive bleeding, airway, respirations, circulation, and hemorrhage control. Then we talk about PAWS, which is an additional acronym, which is pain, antibiotics, splinting, and additional wound care. So different things like that have a major impact because if I can treat the most first life-threatening things and get you to the next high role of care, being an aid station or a bigger brick and mortar building all the way up to a hospital, and even then to a specialized hospital. So for example, if you're in Iraq or somewhere else, you'd go to LARMC, Longstreet Regional Medical Center. From there, you could go to Fort Sam Houston here in San Antonio at the Burn Center. All these things continually increasing the likelihood of survival and better quality of life for such patients. This is amazing. So then we start talking about vaccines that the Army is using, even other experiments. So when I was at Fort Hood, I got to be part of the experiment of carrying somebody on a stretcher and being able to surgically implant a stent in the battlefield. And then because of all the jostling and moving around in a truck or on a litter, seeing if that would stay in there. The Army also pays for a lot of awesome simulation training to make sure that people have more experience that normally when medicine was starting out, you had to go and practice on, I say this very darkly, but dead bodies. So things that continue to progress and sharpen the skills of medical professionals all over, and that carry over into the civilian world that almost basically copied from the Army's experience trying to maintain and save lives. So even when I was in Korea and kicking off COVID, the Army was already starting COVID testing before anybody else was doing it and monitoring and helping along the Southern Korean Army. When the we had the Refugee Relief Act and the U.S. military pulling out of the Middle East, and we moved all of these refugees over, the Army again took them to Longstreet Regional Medical Center in Germany and treating all of their major life-threatening things first in their hospital, then moving them to another safe location. So my big takeaway that I want you to remember is while people think of war and Army is together or military in general, the Army is so much more and such a greater source of good that often goes overlooked and is very much a humanitarian organization as a whole, besides just a very tough guy act, and something that I'm really proud that I got to be a part of. For example, I got to teach first aid to over 12,000 people, ranging from local fire department and to NATO, Swiss Army, and German forces. The Army provided that and paid for that, saving countless lives later on because most often people don't understand how to use a tourniquet or even more invasive things such as an NCD, which is a needle chest decompression in case someone has a collapsed lung. Teaching this course of first combat emergency care aid in the course of a week and making it so simple and readily accessible to the common person, then turning around and it being effective. So that is why I'm really proud to have been a part of this organization. And I hope that when you think of the Army, you think of more than just bang bang and shooting. Thank you. Have a good day.